Human relationships are fascinating, and if you are in one, then you know how expansive and beautiful of an experience it is. What I learned through my own experience and studying of human relationships is one common denominator and one so-called red thread, which I love discussing with people who wish to improve themselves and their relationships. And by the way, you cannot do that as a deliberate action. It simply is a reflection of who you are. It's a vibrational thing, but we'll go into that some other time in much deeper depth, or maybe in this video, who knows. What I want to start by saying is that if you, regardless if you're a man or a woman, if you approach someone with an intention, then that's it, you already blew it. Because you pretty much have an image of one, the person, and two, the life that you might be living with that person. So you're not actually related to the person at all, and you're not interacting to the person at all. You're interacting with an ideal version of that person, and you might be treating them with so much love and kindness and compassion, but in reality, you're treating them for what you want them to be, which is a projection of your own maybe expectations and desires, often as a consequence of a personal lack. So when you hear someone telling you that they come from a place of lack, that is how that manifests and looks like. It's desperation and want. And what I love about discussing desire and want is, if you read there's this book that I want to recommend you, and it's a really fantastic, it's one of the best books I've ever read in my life. It's this one. It's called Power versus Force by David Hawkins. And I'm not here purporting any ideas or any ideologies or philosophies on how you should live your life. But there's a beautiful segment that speaks about attractor patterns. And that ties into one of the universal laws, which is that you attract what you are, and you are what you attract. So whenever you get stuck in life, not in a rational way, because a lot of people explain their misery and suffering by telling themselves that this is a part of the universal plan or whatnot, instead of simply being in it and not detaching from it. But it has to do with where you are vibrationally and energetically and all these things that, again, if you are into these kinds of things, I recommend this book. I'm writing a book on this myself so that you can also see what this is about from, again, one of the 8 billion perspectives. But you must have your own. And that's the beauty of human relationships. You must have your own perspective and understanding of why this is so, why there is such a dysfunction between men and women nowadays or in today's societies, and how that can be ameliorated. And what you will find very quickly and very suddenly is that the answer is within you. That the answer is, in fact, personal accountability. And that is very harmful to the human ego, because the ego doesn't think that it needs to change, and it doesn't want to change, because it already exists as a separate persona, safe and tucked in this life, somewhere in society. Like, for example, I am in this beautiful apartment, and because I like it so much, I don't think that I need to improve or change, even though I might want to have a beautiful relationship with a woman and maybe have a family. What prevents me from doing that is the security that I have right now, and me sitting here and waiting and saying to myself, well, I have this already, so I might attract a woman like this, and she will come to me, and all these things will happen, except that they won't. And the reason they won't is exactly because of that kind of attitude, which is pacifistic, and actually it attracts, because again, it's an attractor pattern, it attracts something on its own vibration, and that's the vibration of pride. Which, again, if you read the book, you will understand. And you don't have to read a book. You need to understand what genuine pride is and what false egotistical pride is. Because pride is also a very superficial emotion, and it's often dependent on external circumstances. I, for example, will be proud as a 31-year-old being in my youth, in my prime, in my whatnot. Well, maybe 25, but it doesn't matter. All that is perishable. And pride is deeply tied to something that is perishable. So if you are a prideful individual, have in mind that the object of your pride might diminish or perish. But if you have a genuine pride, it comes from a completely different place. And once you align with that energetically and vibrationally, you will of course attract people, situations, all that which is tied to that vibration. And I like to refer to this as pride with a capital P, genuine pride, and pride with a small p, small p. So then you can understand better that your emotions have, or feelings have, a genuine manifestation and expression, expressed in reality in real life, and the lesser version of themselves, which also attract in those or at that frequency. So you will then be able to understand why human relationships don't work, because if we are in lower states of consciousness, we often conjure up and summon an image of how something should be or how someone should be, instead of seeing them how they are. Because once we see someone as they are, there is this beautiful silence and stillness that the ego, the human ego, is not used to. Because the human ego is either stuck in the past, which is depression, or projects and predicts future, which is anxiety. And those two perpetual, constant states in that dance is what creates a very sick mind. And if you want to be stuck in that, that's great. If you want to heal from that, just be aware of it. Because most people see healing as this lifelong process. And it doesn't have to be. For some people it is. But it definitely doesn't have to be. The constant awareness of yourself as you are is in itself healing. But don't take my word for it. You need to discover this on your own, not because I said it, not because I have moments like that. That's definitely not all of my conscious and awake time, but it's becoming better and better, and it's becoming more and more there, as it is now. I'm becoming aware of this camera, these lights, my phone, the speakers behind me. So in the same sense, you can be totally aware and present with someone else, and you will understand that that is relationship in and of itself. It doesn't have to have a label because you put a label on it, or you two agreed on a label. You can coexist with anything that is without pushing it away, without being resistant to it, be it a woman, be it a man, and you can simply be. And I know that this sounds very spiritual, very high. I can't even imagine how this sounds to you. But in reality, you can only experience it if you experience it. So I can tell about this all you want, and you still might only have an image of how it looks like, either in the future if you haven't experienced it, or in the past if you have. And you will compare your experience of it with mine, which please don't, because you have your experience, and that's what matters the most. And no matter what that experience is, it's yours. It is yours and no one else's. So when you get on that beautiful, beautiful path of yours, when you start developing into this beautiful flower that you are, you will understand that a part of a flower and a flower's life is wilting, is dying. And as everything else in this life, it is cyclical. Except that there is no one circle. It's an upward spiral, because life always moves and goes. Consciousness, on the other hand, is a mysterious aspect of human existence. And in order to understand consciousness, we need to be aware. And we're aware when there are no symbols, when there is no images, when there are genuine relations between people, and the understanding of what is. And thus, tapping into what needs to be done with no resistance, no violence, and ideally, no conflict. And not even ideally. There can be no conflict if both of us come to the comprehension of what truth is, what fact is. Not fact in accordance with you and me, but a fact that this is a book. And once we start leveraging and going deeper into more complex aspects of existence and more complex terms, we come to see how divided we are owing to our conditioning. And we don't have to be like that, because that is a choice. It is a choice, and it's a choice we make daily, and at the same time, it is choiceless, because awareness is choiceless. If I confused you very much, just try to listen to this again and go deeper into what all this might represent. It represents a different thing for me, it might represent a different thing for you. What's important is, that you are aware of how you look at me right now. Is there a story that you're telling yourself about me? And if there is a story, is it tied to the past? Because if it is, you're looking at me through the eyes of the past, which means you're living in the past. And I want you to think about this very, very deeply. Because if this is truth, then you need to grow. And you will naturally, as you become aware of the truthfulness of what I just said. If you, however, see me with no image, with no voice telling you, ah, look at him, he's like this, he has his hair in a ponytail, he has a blue shirt or a microphone, when you can just look and resonate and attune and understand, then there is a completely different understanding of reality and actually experiencing reality and experiencing this life fully and totally with no image. Because it is the images we chase all our lives. And there's nothing to chase because everything is already there. Thanks for watching the video and have a good day. Ciao.